All right. Good afternoon. Round two of going live on YouTube. Problem wasn't YouTube, problem was links. So let's get a moment for people to get back online. And if you're in our live stream, just say hi in the chat box so I know we're all hearing and everything is good. Amazing. It's finally working. Perfect. All right. So we're going to be talking constipation today, being backed up and bloated, which is not a nice sensation to have. Probably feel low energy, probably don't have any energy. Nothing sits right clothing wise or how you feel in your body. And it's something that a lot of people deal with. And so we're going to assume that, hey, it's normal, but it's not. We shouldn't be backed up. So, with being backed up, today we're going to chat about what constipation is, why it's making you pissed off and angry. And then from there, we're going to talk about how we can simple 5 steps to relieve that backed up and constipated scenario. So I've got Jane Smith. She's a 43-year-old female. She's come into the office because she's complaining about constipation. But that wasn't her main reason for coming in. She said, I'm exhausted. I have low energy. I'm bloated all the time. Anything I eat or drink does not sit well. Right? She just doesn't enjoy eating because it just makes her feel worse. She's got headaches that come and go. Her skin is acting up. She sometimes has rashes, sometimes doesn't. It's pretty dry overall. She's feeling full all the time. And, part of being backed up is if the pipe is blocked, things will back up and you'll feel full. Diminished appetite, right? She doesn't want to eat. She's full. And when she eats, she doesn't feel good. And she's had issues with weight. That's her main reason she's coming in today, because no matter what she does, she can't lose the weight. And if anything, she feels like she's gaining weight, even though she's not eating. So she just feels stuck and she's tired of it. So she wants to make some changes. So what's really going on with Jane, right? When a person comes in like this, main question is, okay, there's a lot of symptoms, but where is the cause, right? And yes, part of it's constipation, but constipation is really a symptom. So she's exhausted, low energy, could be, poor nutrient absorption, digestion isn't working, she's not getting the nutrients she's getting from the food she's eating, imbalance or gut dysbiosis in the microbia. Indigestion bloating usually will indicate some sort of gut imbalance of the microbia. Stress and inflammation can create more of the skin irritation, can create headaches, can create that indigestion and bloating as well. No appetite, once again, we're coming back to that gut dysbiosis, the imbalance in the gut bacteria, inflammation. With can't lose weight, even though she's not eating as much, the thought is, well, why can't she lose weight? Metabolically, she's off. Her gut is not functioning appropriately. Things are sitting when they shouldn't be sitting there and fermenting. And this will create inflammation and change the hormones. And then just feeling stuck, well, nothing's moving. Everything's kind of just stuck in place. So when we're backed up, we're talking about constipation. But constipation, as I said, is not really a disease. It's actually a symptom. And so it could vary from person to person. One person will say, I'm constipated after they haven't had a bowel movement for 1 day. Other people can go 6 to 7 days without bowel movements. So it's usually an unsatisfactory bowel movement, either infrequent or difficulty in passing stool. So we're going to talk a little bit of poop, but it's everyone poops, so it's a great conversation to have with your doctors always. And we have 2 types of constipation. We say there's primary, where it's more functional stuff that's happening in the digestive tract, or secondary, usually due to lifestyle. And we think of lifestyle, food, stress, inactivity, right? Any of those kind of scenarios. So when people complain about constipation, what we usually see is they're straining in bowel movements. Stool is lumpy or hard, like rabbit poop. There's different variations of the size, the texture, and so on. They might have less than 3 bowel movements per week. And it just feels like even though they've had a bowel movement, it's not complete. And then we'll have other symptoms that come alongside bloating and constipation, which is going to be that indigestion, that heaviness, that low energy, brain fog, weight gain. It just kind of domino effects from there. Now, what can cause constipation, right? One is transit time. How long does it take from something going in through your mouth to come out the other end? So, changes in the gut microbia, inflammation, improper hormone signaling can all lead to poor transit time. Digestive enzymes not breaking down food properly can also lead to poor transit time. So, diet usually is a big factor. The way we eat, what we eat, how we eat, when we eat, all of that is still part of diet. Metabolic causes, so hormonal disruptions, hormonal imbalances. If you're on or taking drugs or medications, they can change bowels. And so that's really important to know. Hormones, as we said, with metabolic changes as well, the hormones themselves, like your insulin specifically, is a big one. Leptin and ghrelin will also play a big role with appetite. And then functional issues, if there's any issues within the gut from history of constipation, like diverticulosis, or any other problems that you've encountered over time. A simple one that you can search is the Bristol stool chart. It's kind of used everywhere in medicine in terms of determining what your bowels or what your stool should look like. So we have different types, and so you can kind of gauge from the type or the movement or how you're feeling, and also the type of bowel that's coming out, and have a better idea. Is that normal, or is that more constipated, or is it even the other direction with diarrhea? And many who have constipation can alternate between constipation itself and not having frequent bowel movements to having really, really loose stool and then coming back to it. Bloating is another symptom that is really kind of goes hand in hand with constipation. It doesn't always only come with constipation, come on its own, but bloating is a really undesirable sensation that people have. It's again, it can happen with or without food, and it's I kind of describe it as the sensation of a balloon expanding in your belly. And it's this internal to external pressure that can make you, one, not fit in your clothes, just not feel good. It can also create other symptoms like low back pain, low energy, low mood, or changes in mood. And so a lot of times bloating and constipation do go together because they're similar causes with a gut microbiome dysbiosis, inflammation in gut. You could be reacting to certain food groups if you have any allergies or sensitivities. And usually that's secondary to inflammation in the gut that happens. And then also secondary to constipation because things are just not moving and things are starting to build up. So you're almost getting like this gas buildup within the abdomen. So, really quick on digestive system, most of us know what the digestive system is, but from the mouth to the other end, it's one long tube that's to the exterior of the environment. So, anything we eat, drink, and are exposed to, our gut is the first line of defense to protect our internal system. And it works to break down anything we eat and drink. So, from chewing to enzymes in the mouth to the stomach acid to the enzymes in the small intestine and then into the large intestine and out. All of these work together, and also involved in digestion as an accessory organ is liver and gallbladder, as well as pancreas. They're going to secrete enzymes, they're going to secrete bile. So, if we're going to want to break down fats and carbs and sugars, as well as proteins, we're going to need proper functioning of those accessory organs, specifically liver and pancreas, alongside the gallbladder. So, the mouth, we break down, we chew our food. It's really important that we actually chew food properly. It is the first step of digestion. And a lot of times we're eating quick, we're on the run. So, this can start to already create a deficiency in our digestive function. The stomach, we want really, really good acid. Hydrochloric acid is secreted. Our stomach protects itself on the lining. Um, and the idea there is that we're going to start to break down. We do absorb some nutrients like B12, and we're going to start to create a kind of broken down globule of food to be then sent into the small intestine. Small intestine is where all absorption happens, or at least 99.99% of our absorption happens. So this is where our pancreatic enzymes and our bile come in, break down the food particles into smaller molecules, because we don't just absorb steak, right? We absorb amino acids. They're broken down from the protein into amino acids. So that's where we get absorption of those nutrients. And so this lining in the small intestine is really spectacular to look at, because it's one single lining, but it's very specialized. And so to think that this one lining is what's protecting you from the outside in is really important, to make sure that that lining stays intact. So inflammation, stress, sensitivities, reactivity, dysbiosis in the gut all can start to create problems in that gut lining, leading to what we have the term leaky gut, which then also aggravates inflammation, stress, poor digestion, and all the symptoms that come with it. From there, we move into the large intestine, where we secrete some more water. We bulk up the stool. We get rid of toxins and waste. So if you're not having a bowel movement every day, that toxin, those waste products are sitting in that large intestine. And then from there, we're going to evacuate. So this should happen within, hours. There's a process for digestive transit time. It can vary from person to person, but ideally, right, we want to eat in a calm nature. We want to chew our food. We want to relax after meals to allow digestion to happen. It's a parasympathetic state for digestion. So you have to be in the rest and digest, not the run and get away from stress kind of scenario. And so the gut itself is really involved in a lot of different functions. And so we will see that it has actions with, modulate your nervous system. So, if you're super stressed all the time or anxious, it could be coming from your gut. It protects us from the environment. Our main immune system is in the gut. The gut associated lymphatic tissue is where most of our immune system is. So if you are getting sick often, that could indicate that your digestive function is not optimal. Another area is, especially in the large intestine, we do produce serotonin. So that's the gut-brain connection that we'll talk about in the future. But it's really important to understand that what you eat also will affect your mood. I've noticed in the past, once I've had some sort of milk chocolate. I love milk chocolate, and I got super angry right after eating it. And I was just like, wow, that is really interesting. I mean, there was no reason to be angry at that time. We also create B12, as we said, in the stomach, and vitamin K in the large intestine. So our digestion does play a role in some of our nutrients that we create. Immune function, as we said, is really, really important. And finally, another test that we look at is our small chain fatty acids. When our diet is good in fiber and fermented foods, we're going to increase small chain fatty acid production, which is a good positive GI marker for GI health. So a lot of those can play a big role in the functions of the gut. And if the gut's not functioning properly, we can see those having problems like getting sick often, not having good energy or good mood, not producing the right nutrients, and not absorbing the nutrients we need to pretty much nourish our body. So causes, as we've talked about, right, there's that vicious cycle, stress. Stress is a big player, and it's really funny because I don't like using the word stress. I like to say pressure. We all have different views on what stress is, but this pressure to get things done, this pressure to be somewhere, this pressure of work or personal life or family or friends, whatever it is, stress will affect hormonal secretions like insulin. It'll create inflammation. It'll secrete increased cortisol, which puts us into a fight or flight response, so that stress state, which leads to poor digestive function. And so then things are not moving through, we're not absorbing, we're inflamed, and then we have all our other symptoms like constipation and bloating. Our emotions also play a really big role here. It's a two-way street. What we eat can affect our mood and our emotions, and our emotions can affect how we eat and what we eat. In traditional Chinese medicine, the liver is seen as an organ that allows the free flow of qi, so movement of energy throughout the body. And in cases of stress, the liver is most affected by irritation and anger, which usually happens when you're constipated. And it can attack, as we say in Chinese medicine, the spleen, stomach that are involved in digestive functions. And so all of a sudden we have heartburn, we have bloating, we have indigestion, we get constipation or diarrhea, or going back and forth between the two. So yo-yoing between the two. And then again, the same thing with the emotions, still creating a inflammatory type of response. We're going to get reduced transit time, or it's just going to affect transit time. And it's not going to be optimal digestive function. Food, whatever we eat and drink, is really important. One is temperature, the types of food, sugary, carby foods, fried, fatty foods can be really harsh on the digestive function. We use a lot of energy to warm up food. So raw, cold food can be really nutrient dense, but it can be really hard on the body to digest. So having a really good balance in your meal and also eating in a segregated type of time. We don't want constant pressure on the digestive system. So eating 3, 4 meals, if they're smaller meals, whatever works for you there. But the idea is that you want to have set times. You don't want to be constantly grazing. This can create problems with insulin, can cause problems with transit time, and then create other digestive issues, especially if you're also having issues if you're eating that way. So constipation, right? What happens is there's damage to our gut lining, and we get inflammation, we get poor absorption of nutrients, and we get our symptoms that come with it. What we can start with is testing for digestive function, finding out where the problem is. One is doing things like there's something called a blue poop challenge. You can Google it. It's a fantastic tool. You bake a good with blue dye that's not absorbed, and you can determine how long it takes for that dye to get through the system, meaning from the moment you ate that food to the moment it leaves your body. So it's really great. Also, tracking diet diaries, tracking your bowels. When do you have a bowel? How did it feel? Symptoms associated with. It's really great to kind of track your own scenario and see where you're having problems. And then you can take that into your naturopathic doctor and chat with them. Blood work is really great to look at hormones, what's going on with insulin, what's going on with your B12 and folate and your hematology panel, iron, ferritin. What's your nutrient status? And then we have more specialized type of testing, looking at stool testing to see, is there viruses? Is there parasites? Is there bacteria? What's our good GI markers? Is there some sort of other type of infection that we need to be aware of? Is there opportunistic bacteria that our gut is full of gut bacteria? They can grow, or microbes. They can grow and they can overgrow. That's how yeast overgrowth can happen as well. If we got sick, got the stomach flu, needed to take antibiotics, that will change the microbiome. So those are some simple digestive function tests that can be run by your naturopathic doctors, your medical doctors, and get a great base understanding of your state and situation. So what can we do right now? What are some things that you can start to clear up that backup and get rid of that bloat? Because I know that's your main thing for today. And these are things you can start to do. And again, always, 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 as a disclaimer, if you're on medications, if you have any health conditions, before you change anything that you do, you always want to check in with your healthcare practitioner. So what we want to look at is kind of the 5 pillars that I address when I look and work with patients with regards to gut health. We're going to look at nutrition. What are we eating? How are we eating? When we're eating? Who we're eating with? How do we enjoy the meal? And what are our meals comprised of? A lot of people are eating on the go. We're eating in the car. We're having quick bites. We're skipping meals because we just get too busy. It's really important just to get an idea of your meals and your meal planning and how you eat. So whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner, whether it's lunch, dinner, snack, whatever it is right now, just keep track. It gives you an idea of what foods you're eating and how you're eating. And you can also kind of gauge and see symptoms that you experience. When does the bloating happen? When do you notice that you're constipated, that you haven't had a bowel movement? From there, we want to look at your gut function too. So symptoms there, kind of pulling in from that diet diary. What type of symptoms are you experiencing? Most of you might be having constipation and bloating, but other things are you noticing that you thought, okay, this is normal. It's normal to have a headache. It's normal to have back pain. It's normal to this. Where are your symptoms happening very often? And then from there, we're going to look at, the next steps. So let's go into nutrition first because I want to start there. These are things you can look and change and make adjustments and at least assess where you are. So with nutrition, are you eating fiber foods? Is your diet high in fiber? What's your water intake? Are you drinking water? And that does not count with juices, teas, coffee does not count as water. Water straight in the cup. How much are you getting per day? Fermented foods. Are you eating a diet rich in fermented foods? Sauerkraut, kimchi, those are some examples. Looking at your meals. Are you skipping meals? What are your eating habits? What do you like to eat? What do you not like to eat? What do you like to crave? What do you crave often? Right? And so looking at those different things and from there making some adjustments, reducing processed foods, eating whole foods, eating nutrient dense foods, colorful foods in your meals, and really setting yourself up with a balance of that protein, fat, and carb. With gut function, right, what we want to do is really reduce that gut inflammation. Now, you can go and do some testing for sure, work with your healthcare practitioner, but you can look at the foods you're eating. Are they fried and fatty? Are they spicy? That's a lot of heat. That could be a lot of inflammation causing irritation. Are you eating a lot of foods that create symptoms? You might have a sensitivity to it, meaning you might want to look at how much of it you're consuming and then make some adjustments and probably reintroduce it later on. Are you hydrating? Are you drinking enough water? When are you eating? What's your cycle of food? That will play a big role because every time we eat and drink, our hormones are going to spike like insulin. Insulin's going to bring that sugar into the cell. What's also your order of eating? Some recent studies have shown starting with protein rather than carbs will also cut that insulin spike and that blood sugar spike. So starting with your protein in your meal first and then eating the carbs last would be best. Rule out any infections, right? We want to, if you've been making change and haven't noticed differences or have noticed very minimal differences, it might be time to investigate that further. So getting some support there with testing can be very helpful. With inflammation, again, easier said than done. Reduce stress. It's not about reducing stress, it's about balancing that pressure, that stress response, finding ways to balance it out, taking time for yourself, scheduling yourself in your schedule itself would be really great. Making sure you're getting good sleep, restful sleep, keeping that circadian rhythm balanced, getting that light, getting outside, moving, and getting that movement in can also help reduce inflammation. So a lot of these scenarios are going to overlap. It's not just one thing will make everything better. It's addressing the inflammatory, maybe it's addressing the hormone for you, maybe it's addressing an infection. But then from a treatment perspective, you're looking at reducing inflammation, working on diet, working on movement, reducing stress, right? You're going to find what is the key players for you in your daily routine. Hormones are going to be really important to you, and that kind of comes with the stress picture as well as your eating habits. What's happening with insulin, what's happening with your cortisol, and then also your sleep wake cycle that will help balance out cortisol and help you with keeping the weight off, reducing inflammation, and then helping with digestive function. Movement is really important. Whether it's high intensity or low intensity, you determine what works best for your type of daily routine. But getting some good movement in, getting fresh air, getting outdoors, going for walks, following meals can be really helpful post digestion. And sleep is really important. So that balance of movement and rest. If you're burnt out, don't burn yourself out more. If you need to burn off excess energy, do a little bit more high intensity and alternate it. But movement will get things moving, literally. So, that's a nice starter for our backed up and bloated. Really getting an understanding that being constipated is a symptom, and it also goes with other symptoms like indigestion, maybe acid reflux, maybe poor energy, maybe brain fog, maybe pain. Um, so, really looking at your 5 pillars. What is your nutrition? What is your gut function looking like? What are the problems you're encountering? How your hormones are. Are you female versus male? Are you stressed out? Are you always on the go? Do you have time for yourself? Are you getting movement in? right? Is there movement and rest and that balance of the circadian rhythm? Addressing those 5 pillars will really help you start to get things moving. And then if you're needing more support, always reach out to a healthcare practitioner that you're working with. You're also welcome to link up with myself if you're in Ontario, and we can get started on your gut health regimen to optimize your gut health overall and your overall vibrant energy health as well. So thank you. I wanted to see if there were any questions before we ended today. So thank you so much for joining. You'll receive some emails on, oh, so question time. You talked about transit time. How long? It's really dependent on individuals and the type of meal you're having, but we know that your movement through the small intestine is slower, right? So we do look at 4 to 6 hours. Ideally, I like spacing meals also every and again, depending if you have any other blood sugar dysregulation issues, you want to look at spacing your meals out. But ideally, you were looking at 4 to 6, up to 12 hours for some scenarios too, in terms of food moving through or things moving through the digestive tract. So one thing I've gotten started now that I'll be launching November 1st is my oh, we have another question. Hold on before we go there. So Crohn's, cases like Crohn's. So Crohn's is an autoimmune condition affecting the usually we'll say more so it can be small and large intestine. What I find it is a lot of times the cause of Crohn's um, is undetermined. I've seen patients with Crohn's with no health history of gut issues and others who've had gut issues all their life. With severe cases like Crohn's, we tend to see more of the opposite scenario. It's going to be more with um, diarrhea and bloody stool, possibly in scenarios depending on the severity of it. You always want to be very cautious with autoimmune conditions. What we're looking at is an inflammatory scenario. We do have some autoimmunity, meaning that there is some sort of um, auto antibodies that are attacking. So we want to kind of get that under control, determine if there is any underlying infection, because that again can affect the immune system. So that would be something that would be more one-on-one with a practitioner. It's not something that should be dealt on their own. But again, looking at inflammatory foods, foods that cause irritation can aggravate individuals with Crohn's. Perfect. So these are great questions. And digestive function, right? Constipation can be, again, it's a symptom of other things. If it's something new that's coming up, if it's something that's bothersome, um, for sure, it's really important to always check in with your healthcare practitioner to get assessed and then get a individualized plan for yourself. So what you'll see soon is some information on an upcoming gut health program that I thought would be a best way for people to get started on their gut health and optimizing their gut functions. A 6-week program that will be starting in November. So if you want more information, just reach out. Otherwise, you'll get some emails on that. So thank you once again for joining me today. And if you know anyone who would benefit from this talk, we'll be doing another one next week. So send them a link to connect with me, and I can get that link out to them as well. Have a wonderful day, everyone.